Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 818 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. We are here once again with all the good news. Donald, Jason and Donald here. Dude, it's been a hectic and very, very busy about 10 days or so. We should, as we've been doing a lot lately, it's 3:41 p.m. Eastern time on the East Coast. Things can change, but it feels like things are pretty much done changing, and we now know almost exactly what the Duke roster is going to be because we got word that Dame Sarr is not even going to enter his name in the draft. I'd heard he might enter his name in the draft and sort of just check things out. Nope. Dame is not going to put Duke through a month of speculation. Dame is absolutely 100% coming back to Durham. He joins fellow returnees Caden Boozer, Sebastian Wilkins, Caleb Foster, and Patrick Gongba. 5 guys, 5 rotation players. Sorry, Sebastian Wilkins, I guess not a rotation. I apologize, Seabass. Yeah. But 5 guys who were on the team last year who know the way we play defense, who know the way we play offense. They know what the coaches expect. They know how each other play. Oh my God, Donald, this is like a dream, isn't it?
It's been fun, right? We kind of said at the beginning of the month that patience was going to be key as we figure out how this was going to happen. And sure, we took a couple of hits. We lost Nick Kamini, we lost Aaron Harris, and we lost Isaiah Evans, which we'll talk about. We're
going to talk about that later.
And of course, we're we have not received official word. The only person remaining that has not given official word on what he's doing is Cameron Boozer. We don't need to.
I can't imagine
on that.
No, so, I just can't imagine. And by the way, I do want to say, we'll once Cam announces, and he's going to go in the draft. It's impossible to imagine he's not. Once he announces, then you and I we'll spend some time reflecting on what an incredible, unbelievable year we got out of Cameron Boozer. But we're here.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead. For other reasons.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you look at it now, this roster looks, once again, like a strong one, right? We kept all 4 of our freshmen that are coming in. There was even talk about people, we get a lot of emails, Jason, and we got a lot of emails of people when there was no news that they were worried. When there was bad news of people entering the transfer portal, all of a sudden, people were thinking, oh, well, now other guys are leaving, right? we get all the rumors. If you look at all the forums, anybody who says anything on social media gets turned into this 24-hour news cycle where the sky is falling. And we're here on April 24th to tell you, hey, it worked out. We got 11 guys on this roster, as you mentioned, of the main core from last year. We got almost all of them back, and we even kept Sebastian Wilkins, which wasn't a given. We understand that wasn't a given, but the fact that all these guys have bought into the competition, and Jason, I'll also say for a guy like Dame Sarr, a guy like Pat Gongba, who was testing, thinking about maybe going to the NBA draft, just create an NBA team. I think I said this last episode. Just create an NBA team in college, and then these guys will be more inclined to stay. And we've seen a lot of these guys, obviously NIL helps with that, but a lot of guys are saying, let's stay, let's get better. We'll obviously be rewarded financially for doing so, and let's try to get further than we did last year. Let's try to get back to the Final Four with an eye on winning a national championship. But I'm so glad that that the guys we're talking about are returning, and even when we talk about Slim, we'll wax poetic on what he's done over 2 years.
Yeah, let's focus though for a little bit on Dame Sarr. As I alluded, there was serious draft talk about this guy, and Dame is a guy. When he came to Duke, the expectation was he was probably going to be one and done, that he was probably going to play his way into being a lottery pick. And the candid, frank, honest assessment of his season is, his NBA stock dropped this year while he was at Duke, because he didn't show the kind of offense. It took him a while. This is something that I picked up on, and we talked a little bit about, as we started to get videos over the summer and the such of practices, as we got reports out of out of some of the open practices and video from some of those open practices that happened, like in September, October, that kind of time. I said Dame was facing a tough adjustment to the way the game is played in America versus the way it's played in Europe. And it is very different. If you're someone who really studies the game of basketball, there are major differences there. I talked a lot in the preseason about the fact that Dame does not play off of 2 feet, that when he's driving, he's playing off of 1 foot. And, we saw how playing off of 2 feet gives you more control of your game. It allows you to stop. It allows you to adjust perhaps to a pass and things like that a little differently than if you're playing off of 1 foot and you're kind of just committed toward attacking that basket. Again, I talked in the preseason, Donald, extensively about Kon Knippel's ability to play off of 2 feet, and that Dame Sarr wasn't showing me that he could do that yet. And he never really developed that during this year at Duke. So his NBA stock, I think, wasn't really there for this to be a no-brainer of a decision. But he still could have absolutely chosen to go. The NBA looks at Dame Sarr and they see a guy who has good form and can shoot 3-pointers and who is elite, outstanding on defense. Unbelievable length, quickness, anticipation, just the instincts on the defensive end of the floor. So dude could have chosen draft. Instead, he chose to come back to Duke. And I think he chose to come back to Duke because he and Jon Scheyer spoke about how he can grow and how much better he can be. And I'm incredibly excited to see what Dame works on over this summer and the player that he becomes, because I think we saw during the year, I may let you get it in a second, but I think we saw during the year that Dame was getting better and better on offense. I want to go back month by month on his season, just really quick, and point something out to people.
Wait, Jason, before you do that, let me get push back on one thing slightly, because last summer we discussed the fact that, Dame Sarr had come in, and even around it, there was some one and done talk. There wasn't a lot of lottery talk because, again, this freshman class that had come in was so spectacular, and that proved to be true. What was apparent back then and what the going rate was on Dame Sarr was that his defense was well ahead of his offense. His offense was considered raw in the sense, not like, Common Malwatch when he came in and people were like, oh, his offense is so bad that you're just relying on a shot. And he turned into a pretty good offensive player. Not like he didn't have to score 20 points a game, but he was one that, again, on offense, you look to be a scoring option. Dame Sarr, at the beginning of the year when he started, we remember there was that 3-headed decision that we had at the wing. Was it were we going to go with Darren Harris shooting? Were we going to go with Nick Aminius passing? Or were we going to go with Dame Sarr's defense? Dame Sarr's defense won out. But even throughout the first half of the year, it wasn't that great. It was that talk that he has come back to where he said he had over Christmas break with Jon Scheyer, where they talked about some things and were frank with each other about what they needed for him to do to get better. And that's where we saw the turn in him, where he became this guy where now that we're talking, Jason, we're talking about a guy who comes back to this lineup and is automatically, in my mind, the front runner for Defensive Player of the Year in the ACC next year at minimum, right? He is the best defender in the conference right now because, right now Malik Brown is graduating. So I see that turnaround, and I think now with a whole year under his belt, now an off season, and he's not having to worry about learning the language, or, all the cultural. He knew the language, but like the cultural adjustments that he had to make coming over. Now he can focus on improving his offense and showing NBA teams that, hey, not only am I going to lock down guys at the 3 or the 4 or the 2 or the 1, but I can also hit threes. I can also drive the lane. I can also be an elite scorer in the NBA. And that's what this year is going to be about for him.
Yeah, Donald, look, no argument whatsoever that this dude is going to be absolutely elite on defense. And that is the thing that I think that has most of us most excited about him returning. That this Duke team, when you combine him with Caleb Foster, with Patrick Gungba, and Caden wasn't as advanced as, but those three guys are plus defenders, and they're going to help to integrate the new guys into what I think will again be one of the top two or three, if not the best defenses in the country. We love that out of Duke. I mean, that's what Jon Scheyer, that's the identity I think that Jon Scheyer has for these Duke teams, that they are better on defense than offense. I think that's sort of what I've come to conclude over the past few years,
The
which is
defense
pretty
fuels the
remarkable.
offense.
They're great on offense too. Yeah. But like if you look, historically, Coach K teams were always top two, top three in the country on offense, and the defense usually lagged behind. I think Jon Scheyer teams we're seeing are a little bit the opposite. So getting the huge defensive piece back. The reason I'm really excited about Dame Sarr, though, is that I think he can really take a significant leap on the offensive end of the floor. And I want to just go through a couple things about his season and the progress that he made and the such over the course of this season. Because his first month, the month of November, he had 2 games where he scored in double digits of the 8 games that Duke played that month, during that month. But it was against Army and Indiana State. No offense to Army and Indiana State, but neither of those teams are in the top half of all the teams in college basketball. You then started to see that Dame, was maybe going to be a guy who was going to struggle a little bit offensively. During the month of December, Duke had 5 games. Dame didn't score in double figures in any of them. In fact, he had 2 games where he had 0 points. Month of January, he only scores in double figures once. You get to the month of February, again, only 1 double-figure game, and you're thinking and at that point, I think we were like, okay, well, this guy plays defense, but he's not going to do very much on offense. And then we saw a little something different from him in March. Dame had 4 double-figure games in March. Again, he has 8 on the season. 4 of them came during the month of March. By the way, he also had a game against Virginia where he had 9 points, so he's almost in double figures, including he had 16 points against NC State, 14 points against TCU. God, Donald, remember that round of 32 game against TCU? He was the best player on the floor. I have to go back and listen to our recap of that game. I'm pretty sure we picked Dame as the player of the game because he was incredible on offense and defense in that game. I looked at some of his stats over the course of the season. Like the first 3 months of the year, he was hitting barely 30% of his threes. November, December, January, barely at 30%, 30.8% on his 3-pointers. February and March, he was up above 34%. Now, I'm not saying 34% is great. It's good. It's fine. It's a little tiny bit above average. But with a little improvement, if Dame is going to hit, 37, 38% from 3 for you, man, that is a super, super valuable player. And I feel like we saw growth out of him. We saw him becoming more, understanding the college game more and more. And I also want to point out his best month as a rebounder was the month of March. All his best
where
month
we needed
assists,
it because Pat was out.
Yeah, we needed it. Yeah. His best month for assists was the month of March. All kinds of stats all across the board. If you look, the player that Dame Sarr was starting to become in March, that's the starting point for him for next year. Oh my goodness. This dude, he's going to be, you talk about, all defensive team. I think Dame Sarr is going to be a contender for all ACC. I am that high on his game.
Well, look, I think the one point I was going to make was similar to yours about the fact that he only had 8 games in double figures, but again, half of them were after the calendar turned to the most important month of the year, and we saw him step up in different ways when Caleb Foster and Pat Gung was out. He had a couple more blocks, right? He's not because we put him at the top of the pendulum over here, and we're trying to, top of the key, and we're trying for him to stop the best of perimeter. He's not getting into the lane a lot to block shots, but he picked that up in the absence of Pat Gong. But he picked up his rebounding in the absence of Pat. He picked up his assists in the absence of Pat and Caleb, right? He was able to do those things, and now this next year, it's about improving in all those things, right? He did not shoot well from 3 for a lot of the year, and again, that was part of, his offense is a little bit lagging behind his defense, but now we're expecting that to tick up a bit. You know where he can have some serious improvement at the free throw line. He only shot 53% from the line this year.
Yeah,
So
yeah, big time.
those are things that I expect to go up. And the 6.4 points per game and 3.8 rebounds a game, I expect those to go up as well. Maybe he's again scoring in double digits way more than he is in single digits. So he's averaging a little over 10 points a game. He's averaging maybe 5 rebounds a game and trying to complement. But also, I think what was great about Dame Sarr was that he learned how to play defense playing alongside of Malik Brown. Malik Brown, who was everywhere, who was all deflection, all American deflection team, and he's the only guy on it, right? You have that kind of guy to learn from. Now, next year, as a sophomore, he has to get into the mentality of all these other guys that are coming in, a Cam Williams, a Ron, even a Drew Sarnowski, who was coming in, and Blackwell, who's coming in via transfer. They're learning from him. He's got to be the pacemaker on defense, and he's got to be along. And sure, Caden Boozer and Pat are involved in that as well. Caden, I expect to be way more active on in steals and getting in passing lanes, and Pat with the rim protection. But I think those three guys have to understand that now they're not the ones learning anymore. They're the ones that are teaching, and they're the ones that are going to be looked upon to be guys that can, and Caleb Foster too. Caleb Foster, just with the tenacious ball up man on man defense. These guys all have an opportunity to take this team to the next level, but they're going to be ones leading. And I'm looking forward to seeing Dame being able to lead in those departments next year.
Yeah, I want to get to another guy because we didn't get to spend enough time talking about CFOS, talking about Caleb Foster and his decision. I was in my car. I was driving into parking garages and stuff like that. Donald, lots of time on this podcast, we say, hey, if you missed this episode, go back and listen to it. I don't know that folks need to listen to the Caleb
Listen
Foster.
to the excitement that we had, because it's like 9 minutes of pure joy. So yes, that's cool.
That's true. It is that for sure. But Caleb Foster, I thought, was his decision so brave, so important for this Duke team. His role, I think, it's a little uncertain exactly what his role is going to be, but it's just it's very, very exciting to have someone who can be like that kind of Swiss Army knife for us, and I think play a lot of different roles for the team next year.
Look, I'm still excited about Caleb Foster coming back. I'm still excited about what kind of peeling back this gift wrap box and seeing what role he will have, because I think he may have an idea. I think the coaching staff may have an idea, but I don't think anyone truly knows what his role is going to be, and it's going to be about the competition between these 4 point guards we now have, and Ron and John Blackwell and Caleb and Caden. I think all 4 of those guys are going to be competing for time at the point guard position, but really just for time on the floor, where 2 of them can operate together. And again, it can be a pendulum. You have a John Blackwell who can shoot the ball. You have a Caleb Foster who can drive. You have a Caden Boozer who might be staying alongside of Rippy. Rippy is the main point guard. Caden's shooting. You can have Caleb and Caden. All 4 of those guys can interweave with each other and have different roles. And I think the combinations, I think the camaraderie and the competition between those are going to make this team stronger. I think in the case of Caleb Foster, again, we had he had a downtick last year, not this past season, but the year before that, with his 3-point shooting, and that was because he started coming off the bench and he didn't have this role that he normally had as a starter. So now he comes back, he's the main guy, and he's shooting close to 40% on the year. I like the fact that he's shooting 40% on the year. He can even do that well, and then also be able to improve his free throw shooting, improve just his ball awareness, and just being able to be the consummate team leader as the senior in that year 4 loaded Quinn Cook type of role, where he's not going to be the main guy, but he's going to be the most important person on this team. That's going to be Caleb Foster next season.
Yeah, the leadership just cannot be replaced. It can't be duplicated, and you can't import it or anything like that. I vividly recall, Donald, we saw, Duke social media releasing videos over the summer and then into the fall of the guys working out, the guys, trying to get stronger, Duke is almost always a young team. Next year, we won't be nearly as young as we've been in the past, but we're almost always a young team. And you need someone to sort of say, hey, guys, here's how it's done at the college level. Here's how you succeed. And in those videos that we got last summer, you constantly saw Caleb Foster like trying to Nate James or Sion James himself. I mean, like, dude was bulking up. He was putting in the work and showing his teammates the work that is required. Look, the other thing I'm super excited about getting him back is that this is a guy who's like, he's almost a career 40% 3-point shooter. And we've got a Duke team that maybe doesn't have quite as much outside shooting as Duke is used to, at least in terms of sort of the reputation of the players and the such. So I think CFOS is going to bring some really important stretching the defense kind of skills to the table. And then obviously every so often, won't be every game, every so often we're going to get a St. John's or a Louisville from Caleb Foster, where he just goes, oh, is this a game where you need me to get downhill and get to the basket and get in the lane and no one can stop me? Okay. And no one will be able to stop him. And those games, though they are few and far between, when they happen, I hope and expect they will happen more often next year than they did this past year. But when they happen, fun to watch because he's borderline unstoppable sometimes.
And I think what's going to be different about this team, in not just who came back, but what their role was this year compared to what they'll be next year. Next year's team on paper looks like is going to be a team that is not freshman forward, right? We have 4 freshmen. We have 4 talented freshmen. But of those 4, you may be penciling Cam Williams into the starting lineup, and all the other ones are really competing to come off the bench. And you have a bunch of upperclassmen, a bunch of guys who have experience who are going to be leading this team next year in heavy minutes. And so I also think that's a new thing, something that Duke fans have asked for, right? Well, now we got it. We have a team that has a lot of experience, and that experience is going to be leading this team. And so I think but for Duke, that's a newer look than we've seen over the past couple of years. Even this past year, right? We had 5 guys come back, but it was still led by a freshman. Now it's going to be led by an upperclassman in some form, whether it's Pat, whether it's John Blackwell, leadership-wise, definitely Caleb Foster. But I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys embrace that new opportunity to say, okay, if we want to get to Detroit, to the Final Four, and try to get a national championship, hop on our back. We're not hopping on yours. It's time for us to assume this role. Hop on, let's ride.
All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, I'm just going to say it, one of the most exciting, most fun, most energetic players to ever put on a Duke uniform. We have to say farewell to Slim. We'll have that in just a moment. All right, back from the break here on the Duke Basketball Roundup. And as much as we have enjoyed Donald saying welcome back to a lot of the guys, unfortunately, there's one that decided that it's time for him to move on. And I don't mean obviously like Nick Homenia or Darren Harris moving on to another college program. I'm talking about Isaiah Slim Evans, who Showtime Slim has decided to go on to the NBA. This was not a surprise. This is, honestly, Isaiah, I think, flirted with this notion a year ago. And, I don't know. I don't think he would have been a first rounder a year ago. Maybe late first. I don't even know it's a sure thing that he's a first rounder this year, although I think his stock has improved a little bit, and he's probably looking at being picked in the 20s somewhere. Maybe he falls into the 30s, but he's getting a guaranteed contract from the NBA. And he has, most importantly, Isaiah has decided that he's ready, that it's time. Averaged more than 15 points per game for this Duke team. Was a ridiculously elite outside shooter, shot on the move, took difficult shots from 3, and made a very, very healthy percentage of them. What are your thoughts? I've been talking a lot. What are your thoughts on the end of a 2-year career that was filled with some amazing, amazing highlights?
Well, I start with that. I start with the just sheer fun it was watching him play in large stretches of his time here at Duke. I mean, when you think about that game against Auburn, where he comes out of nowhere seemingly, because he hadn't at that point we had played two really good teams and like two top 10 teams, and he hadn't played a second against those teams. He gets thrown in against Auburn and he gets 18 points in the first half. It's a performance of a generation. It's one that we'll always remember. No one's going to sit there and tell you in 5 years that they don't remember Isaiah Evans for what he was in a Duke uniform. And that game is going to be something that you think about. But this year, the leap that he took offensively, understanding that he, like you said, he flirted with the NBA. There were other teams, won't be named, that were going after him in the transfer portal or trying to get him into the transfer portal, throwing lots of big money at him. And he said back then, no, I'm here to finish what I started. And we basically gifted us a second year of Showtime Slim, and Showtime Slim came out in bunches this year, almost doubling his points per game. His defense improved, his 3-point shooting improved, with high volume, right? Like the numbers may have gone down a little bit, but the volume that he took threes, we counted on him to provide a lot of scoring, to be that second scorer to Cameron Bruiser. And sometimes he was the first scorer, right? Sometimes we saw him go for, 25 points or so. And,
Oh, yeah.
I think we had one, he had 32, I think was his career high. And just the sheer fun also, there were times where Slim would hit a 3-pointer and you would see him turn to talk to whoever would hear him. Didn't have to be somebody who was talking trash to him. It's just whoever would hear him at the time. And you understood the next thing that was going to come out of the coach's mouth on the other side was timeout, because he was a momentum just magnifier. Whenever he hit threes, it felt like everybody on the team got hot. It felt like everybody in the crowd, especially when we were home at Cameron, played to it. And even on the road, it was about shutting up the other team, the other fans. And he was able to do that as well. Those type of moments were one thing, but also his leadership. When he wasn't playing well, he would try to make it up in different ways. We saw him become a better rebounder during the year. We saw him, block some shots when we weren't really blocking a lot of shots at certain points. He became a pseudo rim protector at times, just coming in and surprising people with having games with 2 or 3 or 4 blocks. We saw him get some steals, and it wasn't his strong suit, but also the biggest thing that I saw him improve was his on the ball defense. As a freshman, it wasn't great.
He was a liability as a freshman.
Yeah, and again, that's why he didn't play as much as a freshman. But that took a giant leap this year to the point where he made what was his biggest play this year? It was the steal that he made, or he hit the 3, and then also on the other end forced Florida to go into a play where Caleb Foster was able to end up getting the steal. His on the ball defense just went up so much this year. That's why I think that anyone who does not think that he's a first round talent, it just was not watching the same college basketball season that I did. He is a first round talent. He's going to make a team very, very happy, not just with his 3-point shooting, not just with his Showtime skills. And we talk about also him driving the lane. He is a guy that mesmerizes, and he was exciting, and he brought an air of just positivity to the basketball floor, to any gym that he walked into, because you knew he was going to do something special. He's been doing that since high school, and I'm looking forward to watching him at the next level. He's a guy that I think any team could use on their roster, and I'm really looking forward to watching him go toe to toe with some of these guys that are at that 1 or 2 spot, right? Even the fact that he's 6'7", they may put him at a 3, but honestly, if you put him at a 2, he's going up against like a SGA or Cade Cunningham. It's not that he's going to win those battles every night, but man, he's going to put on a show doing it, right? He's going to go after him. His competitive spirit is what we'll probably miss the most about him, Jason.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned you thought his career high was 32 points. You are correct. And the team that is going to be thrilled to see Isaiah Evans no longer in the ACC is Florida State. He
Yeah.
had that 32 against Florida State. He had 28 against them the first time we played them. Isaiah enjoyed seeing Florida State on the other side of the uniform. And look, Donald, he ends his career undefeated when he hits 3 3-pointers in a game. When Slim knocked down 3 of them, the Blue Devils never lost. Never lost, not a single time. And he was out there firing away in virtually every single one of his games. And it was incredibly fun to watch. Contests like, I mean, I can't even count how many times Isaiah came up and hit the big shots for Duke. The Florida game, that game-winning shot against Florida, I mean, to me, that's a little bit of a direction of the season kind of game.
Mm-hmm.
And like in that game, he hadn't had that good a game. He hadn't hit a.
I think that was his first 3.
He was he was 0 of 7 on 3-pointers, and Duke went into the huddle with time almost done. And Jon Scheyer drew up a play that was either going to be Cameron Boozer getting downhill to the basket, or it was going to be Slim taking a 3-pointer. Hey, dude, you're 0 of 7. We're getting you one more. And he knocked it down. Yeah, he had an incredible season, so many highlights, and the attitude, like you said, just like the energy that he brought. By the way, having been in the stands, to see some of his games and to see his mom brought the energy too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
A great member of the motherhood. I would have loved to have gotten him back for another year, but he is a guy who will be easy to root for at the next level. And I agree with you. I think he'll have an impact. That kind of shot making doesn't grow on trees. The NBA is gonna value that. All right, with that, we're gonna wrap it up here on the Duke Basketball Roundup, latest edition. We'll be back this weekend. I'll say this, 4:25 p.m. If for some reason Cameron Boozer shocks the world, Donald and I will find a way to get on here and talk about it. If not, we'll get on here and talk about reflecting on what an incredible season Cameron Boozer had as this roster continues to take shape and looks like it's going to be one of the number 1, number 2, number 3 roster in all of college basketball next year. What Jon Scheyer wants, Jon Scheyer gets. And he got his Dame Sarr back. He got his Caleb Foster back. Very, very exciting time for Duke Blue Devil fans. Here's the Duke Band playing us out and taking us home.